Hi, hello once again. This is Jonathan Miller with the Hometown Historian. We're here at one of these blue historical markers. Today we are filming the Union Canal Tunnel, which is not that far from where I live. This is a monument to the Canal Tunnel, or to the first canal tunnel in America. It stands not far by this road. Built in 1823, the tunnel under the ridge may be reached by a short walk down the hill on either side. Union Canal was opened in 1827 and operated until 1884. So this tunnel is actually the oldest tunnel and transportation system that is in the United States. It was built in 1823. We actually had filmed earlier. This is the main branch, but we had filmed on and down this way is where we're going to be going then, to the Union Canal Tunnel Park, the north side of the tunnel. But we had filmed on the branch between Pine Grove and Union Waterworks, and that is where we ran into those two locks. And I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a bit once we get over to the north side of the park. But that way is the South Way Park, and we'll actually go down there as well and film from that side as well. So we will see you in a little bit. Alright, so here we are. We're heading in here. We're making a right into the tunnel park. This is the north side, as it says there on the side. It's a really pretty park. It's over 100 acres. The Union Canal Tunnel Park is actually operated by, I believe, the Lebanon Historical Society. They're the ones that own it. Lebanon County Historical Society. Another one of the great organizations in Lebanon County is the Lebanon County Preservation Society. They're the ones, we did a video at Monroe Valley Chapel. They were the ones, the main force behind that. And just a really two cool organizations that have preserved some really unique and awesome history. And this tunnel had actually really been falling apart. And I guess this is probably maybe the only part of the Union Canal that still is quote-unquote operational. It's about 5/8 of a mile, but they really fixed it up, made it nice, and restored the tunnel. And the tunnel took a while for them to actually get that fixed up. And but anyways, we had filmed down over in the north. It was a north branch that goes from Pine Grove down to Union Waterworks, which is right near me, and that was open purposely. The point of it was for the coal regions, to get the coal from Schuylkill County region and then bring it down to a lot of the Lebanon iron furnaces and Union Forge and in Cornwall. I believe the Cornwall and the Union Forge were originally owned by a Charles Grubb, and then eventually the Coleman family bought it. And but that was the purpose of it, and it ran from 1830 till I believe 1884 is what it said. They had the north branch there that was sort of a separate thing for Pine Grove to Union Waterworks. Actually was done in, I think, 1862, because a flood came through, and just there was a dam that controlled the water flow for the locks, and everything got destroyed with that. So ultimately that was the end of that section of the canal. And I guess the Middletown section of the main branch of the Union Canal, that also got really badly broken up, but they fixed that because that was the main branch, and that went Middletown, Harrisburg, over to, I think, a whole way to Reading. Because actually, when I lived in Myerstown, there's a branch of the Union Canal that went through there, and it was actually a branch that George Washington took personal interest in, and actually visited. There's a called Tulpehocken Manor House, or Plantation, I'm sorry, and he actually stayed there 3 times right outside of Myerstown. He was good friends with, it was called the Ley family, L-E-Y, and the first member of the Ley family who bought the land and I guess started to build there was Christopher Ley, and he was close with George Washington, and I guess actually served in the Revolution. His oldest son, Michael Ley, eventually bought it from his dad, Christopher, and then built onto it and actually made the main plantation house there, which is almost looks like an inn. It's a really beautiful home, and then there's a whole bunch of other buildings on that land that he was a major part of. And then eventually his son, Christian Ley, who wound up being a Pennsylvania congressman for I think like 3 years and was in the Pennsylvania Senate for a year. He eventually moved over to Pine Grove, and there's a pretty cool connection there with my family. But he built a house there that's very famous. It's on the Pennsylvania, or on the National Registry of Historic Places called Nutting Hall. And there's a cool connection between the person that eventually bought that and my dad's favorite authors or brother, and it was pretty neat to hear about that, and like with the research figuring that out. But anyways, this is the Union Canal. A lot of really cool places. I actually like to film a bunch more of these places on the Union Canal, just because it is so vital at this time period, until eventually put it under in 1884 was the railway system had been built and had been put all over the place. So eventually it was cheaper, more efficient to use that system than to use the Union Canal in its towpath. So, but anyways, so we're gonna stop here and then we're gonna start up again. There is a plaque that's right down here that I'd like to read, give us a little more information, and then we will go down to the canal itself, to the tunnel. All right, thanks everybody. All right, so right here we're in the parking lot. Here's the van. I got to come up with a name for my van, just like, I hate this, like people put trash all over the place because I can't find a trash can apparently. But these stones here, I think Cliff and I were talking about when we did the Searching for History Lebanon, these are actually from the walls, like the lock walls. You can actually see like the carving here where they would have things in between the rocks to keep them in place so they wouldn't shift. But those are actually from the walls. There's probably a lock here somewhere and they got those from there. So we're going to walk down here to the path and then we're going to go down to the actual tunnel itself. It's a really impressive structure, and it's neat to walk up to it and see it. And just like I said, just something that old that still exists and is so significant, and the fact that it's something that it's the oldest transportation tunnel in the United States, to have something like that right here in our backyard is a pretty neat thing. So this is construction of the Union Canal. The Union Canal was first conceived by William Penn in 1690 as he sought to establish a community on the banks of the Susquehanna River, now Harrisburg, to begin opening the interior of Pennsylvania to assure that the raw products of the colony moved to the port of Philadelphia. No action was taken to implement his plan until 1762, when the American Philosophical Society of Philadelphia, under the leadership of such men as David Rittenhouse, the astronomer, and Reverend William Smith, surveyed the route first suggested by Penn, thus making this the first canal route surveyed in America. The results of the survey concluded that the construction of a canal through the Lebanon Valley was a feasible project. The War of Independence delayed any action on construction until 1791, when a charter was granted by the state for the Schuylkill and Susquehanna navigation companies under the leadership of Robert Morris, the financier of the Revolution. Work on the first 5 locks and a 10-mile stretch of canal began a year later in the Prescott Avon area, which is not that far from here. That's actually down towards Myerstown. It was here President Washington viewed its progress in his visits of 1792 and 1793, and that's where I was talking about the Lay family. He actually stayed with them. He actually stayed one time when the army was at Valley Forge. He actually stayed there. He needed a little bit of a respite, and he stayed there during that period too. The original investment of $400,000 was rapidly depleted, however, and within 2 or 3 years, all construction ceased. In 1795, the state legislature authorized the company to conduct a lottery to raise the necessary money to contribute to the project. Although the lottery was enormously popular throughout the country, very little of the proceeds found their way back to the company. In 1811, with some additional financial backing, work continued for a short time under a reorganized company. At that time, the S&S Navigation Company was united with the Delaware and Schuylkill Navigation Company, forming the Union Canal Company. It wasn't until 1819 when the state government, desperate for the canal to be completed, guaranteed new stockholders a 6% dividend per annum, that investments increased and the canal was finished. The first boat to pass through the tunnel was the Alpha of Tulpahawken in June of 1827. During the next 57 years, this waterway carried such materials as farm products, lumber, coal, and iron ore to Philadelphia and returned with store-bought goods which were difficult to manufacture in the interior of a new nation. So this was one of those places that was extraordinarily significant, and without it, we wouldn't have grown as a nation. Like these different forms of transportation, whether it's the railway system or the canal system, you're talking Union Canal, Erie Canal, our nation would not have grown like it had. And it was essential for the transportation of goods, especially you have times of war and whatnot, that those were very, very important. But ultimately the railway system shut this down. But it was like, when they say that there was not a whole lot of money made it back, I forget what it was, like 33 million or something like that was raised, and only like 200 some thousand actually made it back. And it's just sort of another example, most likely, of government corruption and people paying off each other and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, it was pretty bad, and it's a shame, because if more of that money had actually made it to where it should have, maybe could have even been more significant. Yeah, here's just really peaceful and serene, just really still. The water, you can see some of the bugs, the water jumpers, we used to call them. It's like that, they'd skid across the water. We used to have them on my pond back at my house in Greenpoint. It was always fun watching them sort of jumping across the water. But you get right around the corner here, and then you see the tunnel opening here on the north side for yourself, and then we'll be able to actually go down pretty close right up to it. But it's really neat. Like I hadn't been here for a long time before Cliff and I did the searching for history video on Lebanon, and I had forgotten how impressive it is. And you think about, like, they dug this out by hand. It wasn't like they had the construction equipment we have now to be able to go through. And they had to come in here with picks, with shovels, and it took a long time. And I think Cliff had just on about, like, Irish immigrants were actually the ones, and there you can see the opening, were the ones that actually did it. And there's a lot of these projects and had to deal with the railways and that type of stuff. The Irish immigrants really knew how to work, and they put a lot of effort in, and without those immigrants we wouldn't be where we are today. It is pretty early in the morning. It's slightly after, it's like 7:30 in the morning. I wanted to come out and quick get this done because Cliff has already filmed here a couple times, and he had contacted me and asked me about potentially if I was doing anything today. And I said, well, I'm actually going to be filming a few places, and there'd be some places that he should really, really enjoy. So I figured I'd get this out of the way a little earlier. But here it is. It's the Union Canal Tunnel, oldest transportation tunnel. And we'll read this one as well. Construction of the Union Canal Tunnel. The tunnel completed in June 1827 at a cost of $30,000. So it was actually 1827, not 1823. Completed in June 1827 at the cost of $30,464.29, was the last construction needed before the Union Canal could be opened for commerce. Under the supervision of Assistant Engineer Simon Guilford, which I think there's a street in Lebanon that's actually named after him, 2 teams of Irish immigrants, one working on each side of the ridge, labored for over 2 years, cutting through the solid rock 80 feet below the crown of the hill with only handheld star drills, hammers, black powder as an explosive, and they made their way through the 729 feet of shale and limestone. The marks of their drills can still be seen in the walls and the ceiling today. When completed, the tunnel was 15 feet high and 18 feet wide. To accommodate larger boats, the whole canal was enlarged in the 1850s, including the removal of 3 feet of rock from the ceiling of the tunnel. This improvement shortened the structure to 621 feet and moved the portal face further into the slope of the hill. At that time, 30-foot high retaining walls were constructed to hold back the shaly banks. They collapsed sometimes after the canal closed in 1885 and were rebuilt by the CWA in 1934. Within months they had fallen again, and only remnants have been restored where the walls join the face of the portal. All stonework including the portal face, the arch, and the remnants of the walls were restored in the restoration of 1998 to 2000. Included in the project was a dredging of the tunnel in this section of canal. The Union Canal Tunnel is the oldest existing transportation tunnel in the United States. It was designated a National Historic Civil Engineering Landmark in 1970 and a National Historic Landmark in 1994. The rounded sandstone corner on the opposite side of the canal was part of the original portal entrance prior to the enlargement in the 1850s. So yeah, quite impressive. And you can sort of see how the little bit of stonework there is covered by sort of the undergrowth and ferns. But this is like, the stonework is just impressive, really impressive. And unfortunately, I think on this side you can't see to the end, but on the other side you can actually see through the whole way. But there she is. It's the Union Canal Tunnel. It's an impressive structure. Without this, the Union Canal couldn't have operated. So we are going to head back, and then we're going to go down to the south side of the tunnel park, and then that way we can check it out from the other side, and we'll have some fun there again. And then later today we'll be filming a bunch of other places. So thanks everybody. We'll see you in a bit. Alright, so we're in the south side of the Union Canal Tunnel Park, and this is a sign here. I have it focused on this. Hopefully, you know, you can, it says basically the other stuff that was there, but you should be able to pause and read that then. We're gonna head down to the south side of the Union Canal Tunnel. And here's once again more of these blocks from a lock wall at some time. It was pretty cool down further. I may take a picture of it. There's a canal boat just sitting there. Right now, apparently the water's too low, so they had put up on the sign right near where the north entrance is that right now, until they get more rain, they can't run the canal boat because the water's just too low. But anyways, we're gonna take a little trek along the path down here to the south entrance, and that one you can actually, if I remember correctly, you can actually see to the end of the other side of the tunnel. It's just unfortunately the angle that you're at on the other side, you just can't quite see to the end. Forget how long it is, not terribly long, but you know, it still is quite the feat, especially for back then. You know, it's amazing sometimes you think about, like, how did they actually accomplish all these different things, and it's impressive. I always enjoy, like, the sounds of nature. There's a catbird there. We always joked when I was going landscaping, it seemed like wherever we did landscaping, like, these catbirds would follow me around and just be screaming at me. And it's like I'm being followed by the spirit of something or the other. It's trying to tell me something. But I've seen a lot of dragonflies out here as well. It is definitely sort of shaping up to be potentially quite a humid day. I was hoping the humidity would go down. The temperature is going to stay down. It's not going to get up into the mid-90s like it was the last couple of days, but you can definitely feel the humidity has that swampy feel. So I was originally, after we were going to be done filming, because later today Cliff, the Wandering Woodsman, and myself are going to be filming at Hill Lutheran Church north of Cleona, and I'd like to do a second video on the upper cemetery of Beanoggles Lutheran Church. Found out a bunch of really cool information about that, about the pastor, John Casper Stover. And I actually had filmed at Hill Lutheran yesterday, but was having a lot of issues with my battery, with the phone, and also with storage, which I have the storage issue solved for the most part, but the battery issue, the battery's sort of dropping. When I started filming the other side, I think it was like maybe 12 minutes, and it dropped from 100% to 60%. So it is what it is. I gotta try to get a camera here at some point where I can have exchangeable batteries and whatnot. You know, as much as this thing has done a good job, like the film quality's been pretty decent, it's a little difficult at times to film with, but the battery and storage capacity, you can only hold so much on this phone. And I still have the Elk County video that I got to put out, and that's taking up quite a bit of space right now, so I'd like to try to get that downloaded onto my computer and then get that edited and have that be the first edited video that I'll have done. And a lot of gnats out here too, which is a blast. The only bad thing about nature is nature. The more unpleasant aspects of nature, like gnats and the smell of cow poo. But beyond that, nature's pretty awesome. I have a high regard for it, just not the gnats and snakes and other things. No offense to snake people, but I used to not like have an issue with snakes, but I was painting one time on an under eave, and apparently there was a black snake underneath there, just minding its own business, staying cool. I didn't know he was under there, and he just sort of flopped out right on top of me, and it was right toward dusk. So you have a big, oh, there's a heron, blue heron. It's a great blue heron. But nothing sort of puts a little bit of distaste in your mouth when you have a snake fall out. It's like a 6-foot black snake fall right on top of you when you're trying to paint. And needless to say, my underclothes needed changing. Yep, see, you can see right through the tunnel. I'm gonna hopefully get a little bit of a closer view with the phone, because it's pretty dark. I mean, this is like pretty early yet in the morning. The sun's just coming up, but you can see the whole way through. Let me see if I can focus that in. Yeah, see there, you can see to the other side. It's pretty neat. But this is the south side, and like they said, some of that is from the original when they built it, because they had to expand it, take the ceiling higher, and sort of the face went in. But yeah. So this is the Union Canal Tunnel, oldest transportation tunnel in the United States. So with that, it's been a cool experience. I might quick go over to this thing because I think there's a couple pictures over here. I never noticed this before. So we'll check that out, and then you can see some historic photos of the Union Canal Tunnel. Sun, unfortunately, is sort of like focusing right on my back right now. But that's what the thing looked like, I guess, when they started to do the reconstruction. There's like an old postcard photo. Probably not going to see this terribly well. I mean, it's pretty bright behind me. So it says here, small canal boats were 50-foot long, 8-foot wide, capable of carrying 25 tons of material pulled by one mule. Large canal boats were 90-foot long and only 8 feet wide, needing 3 mules to pull 50 tons. This photo is looking south from what is now Maple and Spruce Street intersection. The large brick building is Mifflin Street School, destroyed by fire in 1960s. And they used like mules. They had these tow paths, and then the mules would go along there, and you'd have these young boys that would sort of move them along, and that would help to pull the canal boats, because it really didn't have in these canals. The water wasn't moving like it would in a normal creek. And here's one of those lottery tickets that practically nothing actually went to the Union Canal Company. And it talks about the elevations, and this is how they had to move them, because they had to go uphill. And it's like, who knew the Lebanon Valley is actually a hill looking east to west? Locks were used to raise and lower canal boats about 4 to 5 feet at each lock. A lock tender lived in a house right next to the lock, and his or her job was to open the gates at the lock when ever a canal boat arrived. The original locks were 8.5 feet wide and 75 feet long, but were too small to handle large canal boats, so were enlarged in the late 1850s to 17 feet wide and 90 feet long. Yeah. Yeah, so they awarded $33 million in prize money. In 1832, $5.2 million was given away in prize money. Unfortunately, proceeds promised to the canal company were never realized, and in 1819, the state of PA had to guarantee 6% interest payment, so more people would invest. But yeah, that's sort of how all those things usually work. Was a lot of issues with, I guess you can say they just were doing stuff that they weren't supposed to. A lot of corruption. So, all right, cool. We're gonna head back to the van, and then I'm gonna head home, eat a little something, and then charge this phone up so it's ready to do the films at Beanoggles Lutheran Church, the Upper Cemetery. There's a couple cool stories there, and I learned a lot more about this John Casper Stover, who's involved actually not just with Beanoggles, but also the Hill Lutheran Church, which is the oldest Lutheran church in Lebanon County, and that's the first Lutheran church that he founded. And then he also founded Sadison's Lutheran Church in Greenpoint, which at some point here in the near future I want to go out there and also do a video on that. And that'll also be connected with the Blue-Eyed Six, because 2 of the members of the Blue-Eyed Six are actually buried there. But anyway, so I'm going to sign off, and we will see you later today with the Wandering Woodsman, and we'll see you about town. Thanks, everybody.